Too many things to worry about. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Continuing with our last week's rules and masail of fasting. Inshallah, very quickly we will end up because we want the password. No knowledge. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nasalli wa nasallim ala rasulihi al-kareem, amma ba'd. Inshallah, we'll try and sit for the next 20 odd minutes and cover where we have left off from last week, inshallah. At 2:30 I got bayan at Masjid Bukhari, which I didn't prepare for yet. Allah make it easy. So last week we were discussing, who remembers where we stopped last week? Okay. Small Q&A. What was the last aspect we discussed last week? We discussed the requirement for the validity of fasting, exceptions from fasting. We discussed who don't have to fast. Insane person, a traveler, a sick person. Did we discuss that? A woman in her cycles, she don't have to fast. Things which invalidate the fast. I think that's where we stop. So what things invalidates a fast? Nahmadu wa nusalli wa nusallim ala rasulihi al-kareem, amma ba'd. So these are different categories. Number one is something that invalidates a fast, and you have to make up the fast without doing kafara, without giving a penalty. So qada fast without a penalty. And some forms of invalidating the fast would be that you have to give a penalty. So qada and kafara are wajib. They both are compulsory. So you have to make up the fast as well, and if there's a penalty that you have to do extra fast, or you have to feed certain amount of people, both of them are wajib. So number one, to eat, drink, even for medicine purposes, providing that it's not an emergency situation. So while a person is fasting, he just feels like eating and drinking. He knows he's fasting, and then he starts eating and drinking, his fast will break. And obviously, even if it's medicine, yes, unless the doctor said that it's absolutely necessary, he's in the hospital, it's an emergency, his life is at risk, then if he has the medicine, then the ulama will give the answer for that at that time. Khair. So eating, drinking, even for medical purposes, will break your fast. Number two, to have intercourse or irrelevant of normal, even if it is against the normal norms, or ejaculation that took place, then the fast will be broken. So irrelevant of if the ejaculation took place or not. Number one, if you have intercourse, your fast will be broken. Number two is you didn't do the full intercourse, right? But at the same time, ejaculation took place. In both situations, your fast will be broken. So foreplay, and a person ends up ejaculating, his fast will be broken, right? Now, this doesn't mean that there's all other forms of adultery, etc., becomes permissible. No, no. So, having halal intercourse will also break your fast, and adultery will also break your fast. And whatever forms is available today, that people are promoting, every sort of it will break your fast. To smoke intentionally, or to take in fumes intentionally, such as agarbatti or incense sticks. Now these days they say agarbatti, these days they say vape, you know. So someone is vaping and then intentionally someone is inhaling that smoke. Or you have the hookah pipe there and intentionally someone is inhaling it, that will break the fast. So smoking intentionally will break your fast. Right, so places where only qada and obligatory and not kafara. So after your fast is broken, which form of fast, if it's broken, you only do qada. You are only have to make up that one fast after Ramadan and that's it. You don't have to do 60 fasts, or you don't have to feed 60 people. So to eat, drink such things which is not normally consumed. For example, eating grass, or to drink like cow urine. So no Muslim would do that. But if someone does something that is abnormal, so he's chewing on paper and he enjoys eating paper, some children they like to put paper in their mouth, or something that is abnormal, so it's not regarded as food, and he's eating these things, then what his fast will break, obviously, but at the same time he don't have to give kafara, he just has to make up the one fast after Ramadan. Right? To break the fast because of intense hunger or thirst. To break the fast because of intense hunger or thirst. So someone is very hungry and it's a life and death thing. He breaks his fast. We'll allow him to break his fast, but after Ramadan he'll have to make it up. To take medicine in a life-threatening situation. Now, how do you know that your fast is intense or not? Because someone can just say, if I don't break my fast, I'm going to die. But you know that he's not going to die. So that we'll have to leave it to the scholars to decide whether he has broken his fast in an intense situation or not. To take medicine in a life-threatening situation. So for example, he had to be rushed to the hospital and the doctor said, look, we have to apply this medicine, or he has to take this medicine right now. Then he should take the medicine and then make up the fast after Ramadan without any kafara, without any penalty. Right. Eating, drinking, smoking, or having intercourse after dawn on a mistaken assumption that it is not yet dawn. So for example, it's 4:30 or 4:35. Today was 4:35 if the suhoor started. So at 4:40 he was thinking it's still Sahri time, and he carried on eating or carried on doing what he was doing, and then he realized that the time was up later on. So for this, what will happen is, because he's thinking that his fast has already been broken, or the iftari time, he breaks iftari early, then he'll only make qada, he will not give a kafara for it, because it was a mistake. This is where when we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allah is the most merciful, the most gracious. From the masail of fiqh, sometimes you find out how easy Allah Ta'ala has made things for us. Okay, you made a mistake, no problem. You made a mistake, no problem. Just do this much. You made a mistake, no problem. Eating food which is stuck between the teeth and is bigger than the size of a chickpea. So anything that is bigger than your half a fingertip will be regarded as breaking your fast. So it's stuck it's in your mouth already, before you started your fast, and then you swallowed it down. So something that is stuck between the teeth, which is bigger than the size of a chickpea, and you swallow it, your fast will be broken, because it will be regarded as eating, as akal. If the food is taken out of the mouth and then inserted back into the mouth, then the fast breaks irrelevant of its size. So, you're eating steak and then a big piece got stuck in your mouth, and then you left it like that until your fast had started. Then you took it out and be like, no, this is too tasty. Put it back in. Your fast will be broken. However, when you'll only do qada, you won't have to do kafara. Swallowing water due to excessive gurgling. So, while making wudu, you keep putting water in your mouth, and by mistake, the water went down your throat. Now, there's two aspects here. One is you didn't know you were fasting and you drank water. Your fast is not broken. One is you know you were fasting, but mistakenly water went down your throat. Your fast is now broken. So, in the first instance was a mistake by you forgetting that you were fasting. So your fast is not broken. The second instance is a mistake while you knew you were fasting. Your fast is broken. So swallowing water due to excessive gurgling. Ejaculation due to reasons other than intercourse, such as kissing or foreplaying with one's wife, and vice versa. So you didn't do the intercourse, but the ejaculation happened. So this you'll do qada, but there will be no kafara. Masturbation, same thing. You'll do qada, there's no kafara. Not to say it's halal, obviously, it has its haram aspects to it. To insert anything into one's private parts, that will break the fast. Sometimes you have to go for an operation. Someone has piles, for example, and then the doctor says, you have to take this, put this medicine, or apply these capsules, whatever it is. So in that instance, the fast will be broken. Right? Women beginning their menses or postnatal bleeding, etc. So obviously the fast is broken. They will have to make up for that fast. Deliberately vomiting a mouthful. Deliberately vomiting a mouthful will break your fast. Now, vomiting a mouthful normally doesn't break your fast. A lot of people they mix it up with wudu. It breaks your wudu, it doesn't break your fast. So if you are sick and you vomited a few times, your wudu will be broken, but your fast is not broken. So if you vomit a mouthful, wudu is broken. But someone does it deliberately, then the fast will break, and you will have to make qada of that fast. Right? Which things do not invalidate the fast? We have a few more minutes, inshallah. To eat, drink, and smoke, or have intercourse unintentionally. Unintentionally. So you didn't know you were fasting, and you ended up, or you were sleeping and your mouth was open and someone kept putting food in your mouth and you kept eating. So you're eating unintentionally. So if you didn't know that you were fasting and you carried on like a normal day, then your fast is not broken, because when you remember, the Prophet ﷺ says in a hadith that verily Allah has fed you and gave you water. Allah has given you drink and food. One Sahabi comes to Rasulullah ﷺ and he says, Halaktu ahlaktu. O Nabi of Allah, I have destroyed myself, and I have destroyed someone else also. He said, what happened? He said, Waqa'tu ala imrati, I fell upon my wife. So the Prophet ﷺ said, so now you have to give kafara, you've done it intentionally, so you have to fast for 60 days. He said, oh Prophet of Allah, one day it was so difficult for me, what will happen in 60 days? So then the Prophet ﷺ said, now you have to feed 60 poor people. So he says, I'm poor myself, I don't have nothing to feed on. So the Prophet ﷺ said, okay, go in the marketplace, go to so and so, and grab, he'll give you dates, and then we'll give it out to the poor on your behalf. So he brought these dates were brought in front of him. Then he says to the Prophet of Allah, oh Prophet of Allah, the poorest person in Medina is myself. Why can't I have these dates? So the Prophet ﷺ smiled as he said to take the dates. So the Sahaba said, is this only for him or is it for everyone? He said, no, it's only for him, not for everyone. So the Prophet ﷺ forgave him his mistake also, and his kafara also, and gave him the dates also. So this was the clemency of Rasulullah ﷺ. It was only special for that Sahabi. So unintentional vomiting. That shows how open Sahaba radiallahu anhu were with Rasulullah ﷺ. They were very takalluf. Whatever came in their mind, they would tell Rasulullah ﷺ, so that we can learn our deen and our sharia. Unintentional vomiting. So someone was sick, started vomiting, his fast doesn't break. Bathing won't break your fast. Use of facial cream, perfumes, oil, eye mascara, makeup, etc. People confuse it with ihram. Oh, Morana, can I apply perfume while I'm fasting? Of course you can apply perfume. Because they think when you're in ihram, you don't apply perfume. When you're fasting, no problem. Injections, all forms of injections is fine unless it's an injection of energy, to boost your energy and it's going directly into your stomach. Then there's a different, feeding injection, for example. But other injections doesn't break your fast. To be in the state of impurity after dawn, so you woke up and you take a shower and it's already past any time, it doesn't break your fast. To brush the teeth, obviously won't break your fast if you're using miswak only. And with toothpaste, ulama say it's makruh. Makruh means disliked because there's a high chance of water going down your throat, right? Or even a high chance of the toothpaste itself going down your throat. To swallow something which is stuck between the teeth and is less than the size of a chickpea. So the first one was bigger than a chickpea, so half your fingertip. And the second one is smaller than that. So in the first one, your fast breaks. The second one, if it's already in your mouth and you swallowed it, your fast will not break if it's smaller than that, because it's not regarded as akal, as eating. Smoke or dust getting into one's mouth unintentionally. So you're driving and there's a truck in front of you and all the dust is coming, all the smoke, his exhaust pipe is gone. So khair, you don't break your fast. Playing with one's wife, providing there is no seminal discharge. So foreplay, but if there is no discharge, it will not break your fast. Don't try it. A lot of brothers get in trouble because of these things. But ejaculation due to looking at one's spouse or due to entertaining one's thoughts. So this, just by looking or just by entertaining thoughts, you haven't done anything, you haven't touched your private parts, etc., and ejaculation happened, it will not break your fast. However, if you have exercised an activity, for example, you have touched your private parts and then you forced yourself ejaculation, that will break your fast. Things that are undesirable and makruh. Number one, to chew something like a gum rubber, providing there is no flavor. So just a piece of gum or a piece of paper that is in your mouth, you keep chewing, it's makruh. Right? To taste food with the tip of one's tongue. So, for example, someone's husband is a tyrant, and if she has extra salt in her food, she knows she had it for the day. So ulama say that she can, take one tip and taste it, but it's still makruh. To collect saliva in the mouth and swallow it in a large quantity, when you're thirsty. And then what happens? You try to make your saliva but cold, and then you try to swallow it. To do that continuously is makruh. To use toothpaste is makruh. To backbite, because it comes in a hadith, backbiting actually breaks your fast, meaning your spiritual fast has become, the reward of it has become much less, and your rewards are going to someone else anyway by backbiting. Because that hadith where Rasulullah told those women, I can see meat upon your teeth, and they were starving, and the fast became very difficult for them. So the Prophet ﷺ called for a bowl and told them to vomit in there, and pieces of meat came out, and it says, you were backbiting about so and so. That's what made your fast. That's what made you break your fast. So fair. So spiritually your fast is broken, but just by backbiting, your normal fast wouldn't break. That doesn't mean you're allowed to backbite. It is haram to backbite. All your rewards are just gone to someone else for no reason. To quarrel and use filthy and indecent language will not break your fast. Obviously, quarreling is the worst thing a person can do while fasting. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, when you're fasting and someone is arguing with you, say, Inni sa'im, I'm fasting. I don't want to argue with you. We'll discuss this matter later on. Laylatul Qadr, the night of Laylatul Qadr, the exact part of it went away because two people were quarreling. To break the fast, things that are desirable to do, very quickly. To break the fast on time. So obviously, as soon as iftar comes, you break your fast. To prolong sahri to the last time of the night. So the last, half an hour or so, or last hour, you should have sahri at that time. As to do as much good actions as possible, obviously. To reply to someone who is looking for a fight and say, I am fasting. So it's better to say, I am fasting. Don't get involved in the fight. Right? To pray dua on the time of iftar, to break the fast with dates. If not, then water. So it's mustahab to break your fast with dates, water, or something sweet. So if you don't have dates, then have something sweet, and then you can have water. Right? Kafara, penalty, and atonement. How long do we have? Okay, that's done. That's the last bit, and then we start with Taraweeh. Inshallah, we'll carry on next time. Kafara, penalty, and atonement. What is kafara? Kafara is a penalty of atonement that becomes necessary when a Ramadan fast is deliberately broken without a valid reason, through eating, drinking, smoking, sexual intercourse in the month of Ramadan. So if you have done something deliberately, then generally kafara will apply to you. There's no kafara for any fast broken outside of the month of Ramadan. So you are fasting, for example, the 6 days of Shawwal, and then you broke your fast. You're not going to give kafara, a penalty for it. You just have to make up for it. Even if it is to make up the fast of Ramadan. So you were fasting a qada fast outside Ramadan, and then you broke that fast also. So you don't have to give kafara for that. Only for the month of Ramadan you have to give kafara if you broke a fast deliberately. Likewise, there's no kafara if one is forced by someone else to break the fast, or if one broke the fast by accident. So we mentioned that. The kafara penalty is in the following procedure. Number one, to set a slave free. So obviously there's no slaves these days, but if a person owns a slave, and this is what Islam encourages, you know what they say, oh, Islam brings slavery. No, Islam actually encourages slaves to be free, because every penalty starts with slaves first. To set a slave free. Anyone who owns a slave and purposely breaks a Ramadan fast must free a slave. Only if one does not own a slave, then the next option below applies. So if you own a slave, you have to do that first. Since slavery is illegal, okay, let's carry on with that. Right? To fast 60 days consecutively. So this order must be applied. If you can't free a slave, then the second penalty is you have to fast 60 days. So not 30 days of Ramadan, now you got 60 days for one fast. If you have broken, right? To feed 60 poor people 2 average meals. So 60 people must be fed 2 average meals. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, the penalty must be carried out in this order, such that each subsequent option only takes effect when the previous one is not possible. So you can't free a slave, no problem, fast for 60 days. You can't fast for 60 days, then you're going to go to the fourth one. Generally, if a person is healthy, then that penalty of 60 days does apply. Why? So that the next Ramadan he doesn't break the fast purposefully. Now, there's an incident of one of the kings back in Spain. So one of the Maliks. So in Spain, he broke the fast in the month of Ramadan. He had intercourse with his, slave girl, etc. So he called all the muftis. Now, according to Imam Malik, you don't have to follow the order. You can just feed 60 people and you are done. So, and they were all Malikis. So there was, forgot the great mufti's name at that time. So before the king could call everyone, the mufti called all the other scholars. And he said, look, the king is going to ask us, the Muslim, no one is going to reply, I will reply. So they said, okay, no problem. So then the king called all the muftis, gathered all the ulama. Now, obviously he made a mistake, but imagine how conscious he was, that he was actually worried about, what's going to happen. I made a mistake. How can I pay for it, or how can I make my kafara? So he called all the muftis and said, this is what has happened. The king himself knew that I should just feed 64 people and I'm done. What is the ruling? Because I fear standing in front of the court of Allah. So the head mufti stood up and says, the ruling for you is you have to fast for 60 days. So he said, no, why don't I just free the slave? He said, no, you can't free the slave, you have to fast for 60 days. So can't I feed 60 poor people? He said, no, you have to fast for 60 days. Now all the other muftis, they're also quiet because they can't. So I said, okay, I'll fast for 60 days. And then they left the court. So the other scholars went to the head mufti, says, why didn't you give him the option of freeing a slave, or feeding 64 people? We have all 3 options open. He said, no. If I had to give him this option for fasting for 60 days, because next day he'll do the same thing. So for him to deter him from making these silly mistakes. Because he's a king, he can feed hundreds of people. Okay, he can free hundreds of slaves. It wouldn't affect him, but this will affect him by fasting for 60 days. So that's what deen. Deen is there so that we keep ourselves on path and on track as much as we can. May Allah Ta'ala grant us all the understanding. I think after this is all about Taraweeh, etc. Next week, if I'm back, inshallah, we'll discuss on Zakat. So Tuesday I'm going, inshallah, Friday I'll be back from Turkey. May Allah Ta'ala make the journey easy. And we come back with Afiyat. We'll try and do the fiqh on Zakat, inshallah. Subhanallah. Any questions, we'll take it later. I need to rush to Muslim.